Atlantic notes Knicks, Celtics, Queta Bona. The Atlantic Division has always carried an outsized weight in the NBA landscape. Between the big-market New York Knicks, the legacy-rich Boston Celtics, the retooling Philadelphia 76ers, and the rebuilding Toronto Raptors and Brooklyn Nets, the division rarely lacks storylines. With the 2025-26 season just around the corner, questions of depth, durability, and identity loom larger than ever. Knicks, ready to rule, but vulnerable. The New York Knicks enter the season widely regarded as the class of the Eastern Conference. On paper, they are stacked: all-defensive forward OG Anunoby, all-NBA big man Karl-Anthony Towns, and perennial all-star Jalen Brunson headline a roster that has championship potential. But the optimism comes with a dose of realism. Stefan Bondy of the New York Post points out that New York's last two playoff runs have been defined by attrition. In 2024, seemingly half the roster fell victim to injury at various stages, forcing the Knicks to play lineups patched together with duct tape and grit. By the time Towns arrived in a blockbuster trade, the team was already grappling with a reputation for fragility. Towns, for all his offensive brilliance, has had his own battles with health. Anunoby, as elite as he is defensively, has missed significant chunks of multiple seasons. Even Brunson, the team's heartbeat, wore down late last year. That's why this offseason wasn't about splashy acquisitions as much as it was about securing veteran depth. New York quietly bolstered its bench with steady, low-usage role players who can soak up minutes and allow Tom Thibodeau to manage workloads. If everything clicks, the Knicks could very well sit atop the East. But the truth is less about how dominant they can be at full strength, and more about whether they can simply stay healthy long enough to realize that potential. Celtics, a transition year with hidden upside. The Boston Celtics, by contrast, are entering a season that feels more like a bridge than a coronation. NBC Sports Boston's Chris Forsberg recently polled colleagues about the team's outlook, and the consensus is that expectations have dipped following an offseason of change. Boston parted ways with multiple key veterans. Former starters Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis were traded. Backup big Luke Kennard left in free agency, and it looks increasingly likely that franchise stalwart Al Horford won't return either. Those are major losses for a roster that once prided itself on its depth and defensive versatility. The Celtics are also in a holding pattern because of Jason Tatum's Achilles tear. The injury ended his 2024-25 campaign prematurely, and although there is hope he could return later this season, nothing is guaranteed. Without him, the team loses not just its most reliable scorer, but also its emotional anchor. Still, Forsberg and others argue that Boston has a chance to surprise. The organization has always thrived at developing under-the-radar talent and maximizing overlooked players. New signings Luka Garza and Chris Boucher may not move the national needle, but in a well-defined system, they could provide much-needed front-court stability. And while Jaylen Brown shoulders a heavier offensive burden, the opportunity also exists for younger players like Peyton Pritchard and Jordan Walsh to carve out meaningful roles. Perhaps the most intriguing subplot is the progress of center Neemias Queta. Queta's quest for a breakout. Queta, a 7-foot center from Portugal, entered last season buried on the depth chart as Boston's fourth-string big. But the 26-year-old has long been considered a tantalizing project: athletic, fluid, and defensive-minded. Years of lingering knee issues have kept him from fully unlocking his potential, yet this summer offered him something rare: rest. I got rested enough this off-season and I think that I put myself in the best position to have a breakout season, Queta told Cesarea Millanti of Eurohoops. I have the tools to compete with the best. That confidence will be tested quickly. With Garza and Boucher joining the roster, and with Boston still looking for front-court answers, Queta has to prove he's more than just a training camp body. The Celtics don't need him to be a star, they need him to provide rim protection, rebounding, and energy in limited minutes. But if he can emerge as a legitimate rotation piece, it would be one of the quiet success stories of the season. For a team in flux, internal development may matter more than external additions. Bono's journey from Nigeria to Philadelphia to Eurobasket. While Boston and New York wrestle with roster construction, Philadelphia has its own young big man making waves internationally. Second-year center Adem Bono, drafted by the Sixers in 2024, is currently representing Turkey in the Eurobasket tournament. His journey to this stage has been anything but ordinary. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, Bono moved to Turkey at 13, chasing an opportunity that few teenagers would have the courage to embrace. I only played for a year before I left home to move to Turkey, Bono recalled in an interview with Basket News. My first basketball shoes were given to me by a friend. Basketball was just something I really liked because of the pace and the tempo, so it kind of drove me to the game when I started playing for the first time. It was really amazing. Now standing 6'9" with a powerful frame and relentless motor, Bono has developed into a promising defender and rebounder. For Philadelphia, his growth could be pivotal. The Sixers are juggling one of the league's messiest salary cap situations and desperately need low-cost contributors to emerge from within. If Bono can bring the same energy and physicality he shows in international play to the NBA, he could carve out a meaningful role in Nick Nurse's rotation this year. His story is also emblematic of basketball's global reach. A kid who barely knew the game at 12 is now competing against the best players in Europe, while also preparing for his sophomore NBA season. The bigger picture: the Atlantic Division remains a microcosm of the NBA's ever-shifting dynamics. The Knicks are chasing contention but wrestling with fragility. The Celtics are recalibrating, caught between present competitiveness and long-term stability. The Sixers are banking on youth like Bono to supplement their top-heavy roster. Even in early September, before training camps officially open, narratives are forming that could define the season. Will New York stars stay on the court long enough to justify their hype? Can Boston uncover hidden value while waiting on Tatum? Will Philadelphia find its next defensive cornerstone in a 21-year-old who once received his first pair of sneakers as a hand-me-down? The answers will shape not just the Atlantic Division race, but the entire balance of power in the East.